everyone. Good morning. I guess we better do something. Is it too dark? Well, I'm Mr. Beck. A few of you met me last week, but most of you didn't make it Friday, and that's okay. I understand the weather was pretty rough. Not a beautiful day like today, perfect weather. So last Friday, I spent most of the time just going over just introductory information about the class. And Ms. Curtis, the lab instructor, was here for the first few minutes and explained about the lab part of the course, which is online. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that, because I'm just doing the lecture part, she's doing the lab part, and we share an office right next door. We see each other all the time, but I don't really know much about the lab part. So I hope that it's fairly self-explanatory how to do the lab assignments. She's not here this morning, or I'd have her come over again. But if you have any questions about that, anything you don't understand about the lab part, maybe if you know someone who was here Friday, they could share that information with you, or send an email or text to Ms. Curtis. She'll get back to you with that. Or ask me, and I'll ask her and get back to you. But don't want to take the whole as much time today to go over this stuff as I did Friday, because we have to, don't want to fall too far behind on the science that we're supposed to be covering. But I will briefly go over some of the more important stuff. That's I'm not going to go through the whole ICR again. You can read that. But and here the schedule is tells us what we're going to be covering each week. The left-hand column is for the lecture part on campus here, and the right-hand side is the lab stuff. So we'll try to keep to this schedule. We have our first exam in a couple of weeks. It'll be that week, but we haven't decided what day to do that. You can have input on that. Maybe next week we'll decide, should we have it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? I don't really care. As long as we've covered those 3 chapters by that time. Okay, you guys have all of you had a biology course before the high school biology? Anybody not had biology? Okay. Most of you in here are high schoolers, right? And I think only a few are not. About 4 are not. So, okay, what else need to talk about that's not on the ICR? Oh, I mentioned Friday that this is a lab, and there are um, lab classes in here. Um, and so sometimes when we come in, if the previous class was not very considerate, they leave stuff slopped on the tables, and they don't clean up after themselves. So but feel free to help yourself to these canisters of cleaning wipes, and there's paper towels dispensers over the sinks. Um, so if you feel you need to clean these tabletops before even putting your books down, go ahead and feel free to clean up. Um, uh, recommend that you check your email and text at least once a day, because Ms. Curtis and I send out messages from time to time. Um, and we ask that the college requests that if you're absent, you send a quick message to your instructor, me, just an email or text, just saying, Mr. Beck, I'm absent today. That's all. Or I missed class today, but I'm okay. So it's not to give you a hard time for missing class. I understand stuff happens, but um, the college just wants to make sure everyone's okay, and that you're not going to disappear and not come back, because uh, it's known that absences are the most common reason for students failing or withdrawing or disappearing. And we don't want that to happen. We want all of you to pass and succeed and live happily ever after. Um, uh, oh, the limit for absences is 9. Um, 9 absences. That includes class absences and online. So if you don't do anything online for a week, that's considered an absence. If you don't submit your lab. What else is there? Discussion forum, lab and discussion forum. So if you don't do either of those in a week, then you'll be counted as absent from the lab part of the class. So if you miss more than 9 absences, then you cannot pass. But 9 is a lot. Nobody should be missing nine times. Let's see. Please don't sleep in class. Please don't cheat on exams. This should be obvious. This door here is locked from the outside, so you cannot come in that door anymore. They just started doing that. You can go out that door, but you can't come in. Okay, that's all. Any questions about anything? I had one question already about the stuff on Moodle. Let's look at Moodle real quick. Here's Moodle for this class. Contact information and office hours for me and Ms. Curtis there at the top. Bunch of other stuff that you can look at if you want. But this introductory quiz, I don't know if I even mentioned that Friday or Ms. Curtis did, but this is something that yeah, it's just a 10-question quiz. It's not about biology. It's just about the kind of stuff I'm talking about right now. Just stuff that's on the ICR and Moodle. Like I think there's a question about how many exams there are in this class, stuff like that. But so it's worth a few points, not very much. But the main reason for this is it says official course entry assignment. That means it's evidence that you are participating in the online part of the course. So I'm not sure why they do this in a hybrid, why the college insists on this in a hybrid course, but in a fully online class, if you did not do this intro quiz, you would be withdrawn um, from the class after the deadline date for that assignment. For this class, it's the 31st, Friday, so that's this Friday, I guess. So if you attend class on campus, but you don't do this, I don't think you would be withdrawn. But still, you should do it anyway. It just takes a few minutes. So each week on Moodle, there's PowerPoint and sample questions. These are just for practice, so you don't have to turn anything in for these. They're just for your own benefit. Test your knowledge. Get an idea of what kind of questions will be on the lecture exams. The study guide, again, that's just for your own use. Nothing to submit. It's not a required assignment. And there's a video. That's just something extra. Most weeks there will be some extra stuff under these reading assignments and resources. There will be a few homework assignments. That's one I've got on here. That date's wrong. That's left over from last semester, but I'll have to change that. But there will be 3 or 4 of these. I think I give a week to do it. And those total of those 3 or 4 homework assignments will be worth the same as one exam. And they're very easy. They're so easy that if you do it, you'll get 100% on it. And so if you just do these assignments, turn them in on time, it's like getting 100% on an exam. And that's a really good deal in a college class. That can really help your grade. So please don't just blow that off and don't do them, because then instead of helping your grade, it'll hurt your grade. Okay. Any questions about anything? So all your lecture grade will just include these 4 exams and those homeworks. So that's all your graded assignments for the lecture part. But then the lab activities, I guess each week there's some kind of online lab activity and discussion forum. So you have to post a comment addressing the topic of the discussion forum. Okay. Well, any questions before we start learning some biology? I tried recording Friday's class because so many were absent, but it didn't work. Sorry, the recording didn't work. I'm not sure why. This tool that I use called Collaborate, I don't know why, sometimes it just doesn't work. I'm trying it again today to see if it works. Okay, so chapter 1. As it tells us here, these PowerPoints are narrated, which means if you click on that little speaker icon, you'll hear my voice. So I've added some explanations to most of the slides. These slides are just an outline. I can't put too much information on the slides, or they'll get too long. You don't want a PowerPoint that's 200 slides long. So I add a little elaboration and some examples on these narrations. The PowerPoints, by the way, I make the PowerPoints, so consider the PowerPoints to be your best study guide, because they include the information that you should learn. So you don't have to learn everything in the textbook. And I don't expect you to read and memorize every word of the chapter in the textbook. Just skim through the chapters, get an idea what it's about. But the PowerPoint tells you what you're expected to learn. So if it's not on the PowerPoint, you don't need to learn it for this class. It won't be on an exam. So if there's anything on this PowerPoint that you don't understand after reading it, after coming to class, then the textbook can be a good resource, because the textbook has longer, just better explanations for this stuff. Anyway, so what is biology? Study of life, right? Bio is Latin for life. And this is a list of some of the many branches or divisions of biology. So biology is a very huge, broad science. Includes everything about life, and that's a lot. So many different forms of life and different ways to study life. Any of you guys, I asked this Friday, but I'll ask it again. Did any of you guys love science? Good. Couple. Any of you hate science? It's okay if you say so. Any of you think science is too hard? You just don't get it? Okay. Well, if you major in science and biology at a university, you'll take a lot of courses with names like this. And I won't go through and define all of these. Some of these you can figure out, even if you haven't seen those terms before. But we'll be learning stuff from many of those, a little bit of a lot of these in this class. Okay, definition of life. That's a hard thing to do, to define the word life. We all know it when we see it, right? We have some idea what it is, but if you had to define that word in a sentence, it's really hard to do that. I don't think I could do it. One way we can describe what that word means is by just looking at what are features or characteristics of living organisms that non-living things don't have. Anybody know what that picture is? What is that? Is that some kind of living organism? You ever seen one of them? Something something like from a science fiction movie. Yeah, that's actually a virus. Most viruses don't look like that, but most viruses are much simpler than that. But this one's pretty elaborate. It has what looks like legs, and this is actually like a hypodermic needle. Um, what viruses do? I mean, their whole objective for their existence is to infect cells, which means to get their DNA into cells. And this one, that's how it does it. It will inject its DNA into a cell. So we'll talk about that later. So it's a sit anywhere, whatever empty chairs there are. So there's a question: is a virus a living organism or not? Most biologists would say no, they're not. They're not alive. We'll talk about why that is later. So these are properties, characteristics of living organisms that are not present in non-living things, or at least not in the same way. So order, sensitivity, reproduction and adaptation, growth, development, regulation, and homeostasis, and energy processing. So let's look at each of those a little bit. So what's meant by order is that living organisms are very, very organized. So what's the structure and functions of a living organism like you it's not random. It's everything that goes on inside of you is very well organized, and it has to be. All of your organs work together. Every cell in your body has a function, and that's true of every living organism, even one-celled organisms like a bacterium. Those are pretty simple, small life forms, but what goes on in them is very well organized. Every living organism is made up of one or more cells. That's called the cell theory. No one has ever discovered an organism that is not made up of one or more cells. And we'll do a whole chapter on what cells are. But if you discover an organism that is not made up of cells, then you will win a Nobel Prize and you'll be world famous. But that hasn't happened yet. So says here, life is organized into levels. So they're listed here: atoms, molecules, organelles, cells, tissues, so on. So if we would look at you, the whole living thing is called an organism. That's what you are. But we could take you apart into different organ systems, like your digestive, respiratory, nervous, muscular, skeletal system. There's about 11 or 12 organ systems in a human body. And each organ system is made up of organs working together, like your digestive system is made up of everything from your mouth to the anus. It's a continuous tube from your mouth, your teeth, your tongue, your esophagus that you swallow through, your stomach, your small intestines, large intestines, and also the liver and pancreas, which are not part of that tube, but they also contribute to the digestive system. They all work together to digest food, break it down into small enough molecules and atoms that it can be absorbed into your blood and go to the cells. So organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are just the stuff or the material that an organism is made up of. So you have muscle tissue and nervous tissue and bone tissue. Even blood is considered to be a tissue. So each organ is made up of a few or several tissues. And then tissues are made up of cells. Each tissue is made up of cells along with some non-living stuff. So your body is made up of a lot of cells, but there's also a lot of non-living stuff in your body. For example, bone is a tissue, and there are bone cells in your bones, a few different kinds of cells in your bone tissue. But most of your bone tissue is that white, hard mineral, calcium phosphate, that's not alive. Your blood is a tissue. About half of your blood is the red blood cells and white blood cells, but the rest is just liquid, called the plasma. That's not alive. So tissues are both living and non-living stuff. So the cells are made up of their own structures that perform functions, kind of like the organs in your body, but we call them organelles. And we'll learn a little bit about the organelles in a future chapter. And then the cells and organelles, like everything, living and non-living, is made up of atoms and molecules. So that we say that's the chemical level, or the molecular level. So a molecule is just two or more atoms stuck together. We're going to do a whole chapter on basic chemistry, chapter 2, learn about that stuff. So at every level, it's very, very well organized in a living organism. Sensitivity or responsiveness. Living organisms respond to stuff that happens to them. We call that a stimulus. Like if I would poke you, you would respond somehow. We respond just to the sound coming into our ears, or the what we see with our eyes by the light coming into our eyes. Even internally, our bodies or our physiology responds to changes that happen. So if your blood pressure starts to drop just because you're sitting here not doing anything much physical, it's normal for your blood pressure to just slowly drop and drop and drop. When your body will notice that, a couple things will happen to bring your blood pressure back up. What do you think might happen to bring your blood pressure?
There's this thing while you sleep called the hip picture, because your brain perceives your heart slowing down so much it forces you to lay down to speed it back up.
Yeah. What specifically is gonna happen to your blood though? So your blood pressure is getting too low. What could cause your blood pressure? What would your heart maybe do? Beat faster? And your many of your blood vessels are able to constrict or dilate. They're surrounded by their own thin layer of muscle, and so when your blood pressure drops, the blood vessels will constrict a little bit to squeeze on your blood to bring your blood pressure back up. So that's what's meant by internal and external environments. Stuff that happens to you internally will cause responses. And that's not only animals like us, but even plants. You put a plant by a window, it's going to grow toward the light. Its roots will grow toward nutrients in the soil. If there's toxins in the soil, they'll grow away from that. Or bacteria, put bacteria cells in a petri dish. They'll move toward nutrients, away from toxins. Non-living things don't do that, not in the same way. Reproduction. Reproduction just means making copies, making more organisms. Non-living things don't do that. A rock doesn't reproduce, not in the same way that a frog does. In in a multicellular organism like you, multicellular just means you're made up of many cells, as compared to something like a bacterium, which is just one cell. Um, you have there's actually two kinds of reproduction that goes on in humans. One is to produce sperm and egg, and then the sperm fertilizes the egg, and it makes a new person. That's reproduction. But also, inside of your body, there's a lot of reproduction going on all the time. Cellular reproduction, so cells making more cells. And the way cells reproduce is, well, they just divide, right? There was one, then it divides, and now there's two. Um, and that happens when we're growing. And each one of us started out as just one cell, a fertilized egg. What's the term for a fertilized egg? What do we call that? What's that?
Zygote.
Zygote, exactly, zygote, yeah. So, a half a day or a day after that egg is fertilized, it divides in half. It just splits in half. And now there's two cells. And then each of those divide, then there's four cells. Those divide, now there's 8, and 16, 32. After only 20 sets of divisions, that's up to 1 million cells already. And so that's we call it an exponential increase, because every time all the cells divide, it doubles, and the more cells there are, the more of an increase there will be when they double. So after only 30 sets of divisions, up to 1 billion cells already. So and along the way, some of those cells become particular types of cells. Some become skin cells, some become muscle cells, some become nerve cells and bone cells. So that's how we grow and develop from one cell into a very complex multicellular organism with all the different parts. And so the cell division happens a lot while we're growing, but even after we stop growing, there's still plenty of cell division going on, because some cells just don't last very long. Skin cells, they're always falling off. You scratch yourself, there goes a few hundred cells. But we don't run out of skin cells, because they're always dividing to make more, to replace them. I've read that most of the house dust in our houses is skin cells that fall off of people and dogs. Red blood cells in your blood. We got just billions, I don't know, I forget how many, trillions of red blood cells in our bodies. And but each one only lives about 4 months, 120 days, and then they just wear out and die. So we always have to be making more to replace them. And when we get injured, cells get killed off and destroyed. So healing has to involve cell division to replace the cells in the injured tissues. So lots of cell reproduction going on. And making sperm and egg, it involves a type of cell division that we'll learn about. Okay, adaptations. Living organisms adapt in the way that non-living things don't. So we adapt throughout our lives, just by physically our bodies just change to adapt to the requirements of our environment, and mentally we learn how to survive. Every day we learn new things about how to survive better in our circumstances. So each individual organism adapts, but also there's this kind of adaptation that in biology we call evolution. Excuse me. And evolution is not individual organisms changing or adapting. It's whole populations or whole species changing uh, through many generations. Um, and that much of that changing is for adapting to the particular environment of the organism. Um, we'll do a whole chapter on evolution. Um, Growth and development. Talked a little bit about that already. How we go from one cell, a fertilized egg, to how many cells are in an adult human? Anybody know? Is it hundreds, thousands, millions? Think anyone has ever counted them? It's kind of impossible to count all this, but they're estimates. It's in the trillions. I've read it's like between 10 and 100 trillion. Some books say 50 trillion, some say 70 trillion. But, it's a lot. So growth just means getting bigger. So we grow by adding more cells, and development just means taking on the form of the organism. We started out as just one little round cell, but now we're shaped way different from that. So we're made up of all these different organ systems and stuff. That's the development part. But even a one-celled organism like a bacterium grows. Because if this is a bacteria cell, just one cell, and it divides in half to reproduce. Now there's two of them. Each of these, we call these the daughter cells, and this is the parent cell. But each of these would be only half the size of the parent cell, right? So each of these would have to grow to get to be the normal size for that kind of bacteria. So growth can be a cell getting bigger, or it could be adding more cells in a multicellular organism like us. And also our cells get bigger. In fact, there's muscle cells. The number of muscle cells that you're born with is all you get. I'm not a very big guy. I don't have a lot of muscle mass, but if I would go to a gym and lift weights every day, my muscles would probably get bigger. But I'm not adding more muscle cells. It's just the muscle cell that I already have will get thicker and add more muscle proteins to them. Okay. Regulation. This is kind of included in the order or organization. So everything going on in your body is very well regulated. That is, this word homeostasis. This word it just means maintaining internal environment within ranges that can sustain life. But it really means just keeping everything normal inside of your body. So listed here are some examples of these variables. A variable is just something that can change. So the pH of your blood, that just means how acidic, how much acid is in your blood. It has to the pH of your blood has to be in a very narrow range. pH is a number that's a measure of acidity, and that number is from 1 to 14. But the pH of your blood has to be between 7.35 and 7.45. A very narrow range. If it gets below or above that, you have a condition called acidosis or alkalosis, which means you're sick. and your body temperature, about 98 degrees. If it gets much below or above that, you're in trouble. And your blood glucose, your blood sugar levels, has to be maintained very well regulated within. It can't get too low or too high, or you're in trouble. Blood pressure. Um, can't get too low or too high. All of those things can change. Your blood pressure goes up and down through the day. That's perfectly normal. But if it's too low chronically, like all the time, or too high all the time, if your blood sugar level's not regulated, what's that disease called? Diabetes mellitus. So that's what homeostasis is, just keeping all this stuff normal, in the normal range. It's okay if your blood pressure drops down to, 70 over 100. So you're not going to die. But when that happens, your body normally will do something to bring it back up. If your blood pressure starts to get too high, your body will do things to try to bring it back down, like cause your kidneys to take water out of your blood to put it into the urine. That way you have actually less blood in your body, so your blood pressure will drop. But if those things don't happen, this homeostasis fails, then you have a disease. You have something that could be very harmful to your health and even kill you. Okay, so these are, again, regulations, something that does not happen in living organisms. Energy processing. All living organisms use energy. That's why we have to eat food. Plants don't have to eat the way we do. But they take energy from the sun, along with carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil, and they make their own food and then store that and use it later. So every living organism has to take in energy somehow, and then it's the energy that is really sustaining the life. Every cell has to have energy. Animals like us, we eat food for two reasons. One is for the chemical energy in the food that's measured in calories. We eat the food, our digestive system breaks it down into small enough molecules and atoms that it can be absorbed into our blood. Our blood delivers those nutrients like carbohydrates and fats and proteins, and vitamins and minerals, delivers those to the cells of our body that need them. What do the cells do with those nutrients? Two things. One is they further break them down, like sugar molecules. They'll break them apart, and the energy that was holding that sugar molecule together is used by the cell for everything it does as a living cell. But also these nutrient molecules are used by our cells to make new molecules. The cells are always making new molecules. Especially proteins. Cells love to make proteins because protein molecules do all the work in cells. And so your cells cannot make proteins if they don't have atoms and smaller molecules to make them out of. So your cells need nutrients from our food for energy and for making new molecules. This word metabolism, it just means all the chemical reactions going on within an organism. So every organism has metabolism, just all the chemical reactions going on. Inside your body, there's always a lot of chemical reactions going on. Like your digestion, that's chemical reactions breaking down your food molecules into smaller molecules, and then in your cells making new molecules. So chemical reactions are just changes in atoms and molecules to either break molecules apart or make new molecules. But all those processes together going on in an organism, we call metabolism. So there's, again, that list of the levels of organization. And I kind of skipped over the ones at the bottom here. So we can study biology at the atom and molecule level, or we call that biochemistry or molecular biology. The molecules and chemical reactions that go on in living organisms. Then we said organelles and cells and tissues and organs and organ systems, and then the whole organism. But also it says here populations and communities, ecosystems. So even we can study biology even at a larger level above the individual organism by studying whole populations. And the definition of a population is all of the, anybody know what is the definition of population in biology? All of what? All the organisms, all the organisms living together and interacting in an area, but what do they all have in common? The same species. Yeah, they're all the same species. That's definition of population. Organisms of the same species, like all the cottontail rabbits on this campus, or all the cottontail rabbits in Richmond County, or whatever we want to consider a population. We could say the whole country, the whole continent. A community is all of the organisms of all the species living together and interacting. Like all the organisms on this campus, or all the organisms in the lake on campus. We call that a community. So it's like all the populations together. We can sometimes refer to just the plant community. So that would be only the plants, but all the species of plants, or just the animal community. But then this word ecosystem here, that's all the organisms along with the non-living stuff in the area. So non-living stuff would include water, rocks, soil, air. And this word biosphere just means the worldwide ecosystem. So everywhere on Earth where there are living organisms, the biosphere is those living organisms along with the non-living stuff. So that would be on the ground, of course, in the water, in the soil, even in the air, wherever there is life. Okay. Okay, a little more about these levels of organization. Cells, smallest unit of life. That just means a cell is alive. But if you take a cell apart, the individual parts are not really alive. And these words, prokaryotic and eukaryotic, you need to learn those words if you don't know them already. We'll be seeing those words again in future chapters. But every living cell, every cell is either one or the other. It's either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. And you are made up of eukaryotic cells, your body. All of your cells are eukaryotic. That means Eukaryotic cells are larger than prokaryotic. They're more complex. They have organelles in them, like a nucleus with chromosomes in it, and several other organelles that we'll learn about. Endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi complex and lysosomes and um, mitochondria, chloroplasts if it's a plant cell. But prokaryotic cells don't have that. Prokaryotic cells are much smaller. They're simpler. They don't have all those organelles. They have a lot of the same processes going on in them, but the processes are not contained in organelles like they are in eukaryotic cells. No nucleus. Prokaryotic cells have usually just one chromosome. How many chromosomes are in your cells? Nobody remembers? How many pairs of chromosomes in a human cell? It's 23. But those cells are in a nucleus. That means they're surrounded by a membrane. But in prokaryotic cells, no nucleus, no membrane, just usually one big chromosome that's in a loop of DNA, and it's just floating around free. This is membrane-bound organelles. Every cell is surrounded by a membrane. It's called the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. It's just a thin layer of this material called phospholipid that's similar to kind of like a fat material, a soft material. But inside the cell, the organelles have their own membranes surrounding them, most of them. But again, prokaryotic cells don't have that. So the prokaryotic cells are bacteria and archaeans. Those are two groups of very small one-celled organisms, bacteria and archaeans. And the eukaryotic cells are everything else. So it's animals, plants, fungi, algae, protozoans. Okay, it's the word taxonomy. I'm going to stop here and take attendance. We'll do that. Oh, I could just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's 24 seats in here, and there's supposed to be 24 students. So a couple people not here, but I should try to learn names. I'll never learn all 24. Ashley, there's two Ashleys. Ashley Aguilar. Ashley Aguilar. No. Okay. Genesis. Okay. Gavin. Yeah. Okay. Is it Isaias? What is it? Isaias? Okay, thanks. Hoyle. Trace. Eleni. Okay. Keelan. Okay. Allison. Okay. Luis. Okay. Kimberly. Okay. Constance. Okay. Kimani. Okay. James. Ariadna. Okay. Is it yeah, Malaya, right? Yesenia, Yesenia, okay. Trinity, okay. Ashley Seguina, where? Okay. Jory, okay. Nathan, okay. Lily, Christian, okay. Sierra, okay. And Andrew. Uh, how'd that happen? um, okay. Only one people. Okay, that's right. Only one person missing. That's right. Okay, that's all. Let's get out of here. So see you Wednesday.
Stay dry.
Okay, thanks.
Quiero, güey, sacar el trabajo.
Yeah.